Hey authors, I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Megan and I'm a professional writer and editor and a published author. My last few videos have been about my new fantasy novel that I'm working on, which is going really well. I will drop those links, the links to those videos in the description below. But today I wanted to return to my last manuscript, which I recently completed after working on it for a couple of years. It's called Chasing Ghosts, and it's a supernatural mystery. I mentioned in this video about my writing goals for this year, and one is that I want to treat querying like a business, which I do have a business, so I'm able to take some of those lessons and apply them to querying. That's what I'll get into today. If you've watched any of my videos, especially this one, then you know that it is my dream, my big goal, to land a literary agent and get traditionally published. Now, I'm not knocking self-publishing. I've tried it once and I'm open to doing it again, as I'm also open to pitching directly to small independent publishers, but this is just my personal goal, something that I've been working toward for a very long time. I want agent representation. To my recollection, I wrote 5 books prior to Chasing Ghosts, queried all of them. So we're talking about nearly 15 years of writing and querying, hundreds of query letters, probably. I've gotten a few requests for partials and fulls, meaning the agent asks to see some or all of your manuscript, but no offers. And I'm back in the query trenches again. I wanted to share how I'm approaching it this time around, and hopefully you'll pick up a thing or two that you can try on your own. So I had to pull the trigger and say enough, because I would keep editing this book and going in circles forever. I've put it through 2 rounds of beta readers, 2 bigger rewrites, and probably 5 or 6 rounds of editing. I'm not exaggerating when I say that you could flip to certain pages of my book and start reading and I could finish. Like, I have parts of my book memorized. Maybe you can relate to all of this. But you do get to a point in writing a book where you just have to say, this is it, here it is, and you have to move forward. If an agent or a publisher or editor gave me specific feedback and told me something in particular to fix, I'm confident I could do that. And I also took the feedback from my beta readers very seriously and made a lot of great changes based on what they said. But continuing to sit here and go, how can I make this better? I'm out of gas. I've got nothing left. So I started querying. Let's talk about how I'm finding agents and how I'm keeping track of my work. Now, right off the bat, there are different ways to find literary agents. I have a query tracker subscription, and I know that some authors stick entirely to that platform. That's how they find and query all of their agents. However, what agents have in Query Tracker doesn't always match what's on the agency's website. Query Tracker isn't always up to date or accurate, nor do all agents want to be queried via Query Tracker. Some prefer email. This means that I'm using a combination of Query Tracker and Google searches to find agents and review their submission guidelines before pitching them. Fun fact, Query Tracker doesn't even have a supernatural option for their genre category. Yay! So in my case, I have to check agents' websites and their manuscript wish lists to confirm that they represent my genre. Then in Query Tracker, I usually check mystery, and in the query letter, I specify that it's mystery supernatural. Once I find agents who I know at least represent my genre, then I dig a little deeper, and I'm looking for details we have in common. For example, an agent who I wasn't even following popped up in my Twitter feed saying she was open to queries. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And I checked out her bio on the agency website. Not only does she live like a half hour from me here in Colorado, which I thought was kind of cool, but she said she loves stories set in small, creepy towns, which Chasing Ghosts is, and she was looking for diversity. My main character is Middle Eastern, like me, and there were a few other things as well. When I queried her, those were the first things that I mentioned. I was basically saying, hey, I've got what you want. This is what we mean when we talk about personalizing your query letters. Now, will it always work out perfectly? No. Does that mean that you should query agents who've made it clear that they have no interest in your type of manuscript? Don't do that. Don't be that person. We have to reach out to agents who we're confident we know we'd be a good match. So that's how I'm going about finding literary agents that make sense for me and my book. The night I started querying, it took me over an hour to send 2 letters. And it's true that I'm rusty, but also that's just how long it took, and it hit me all over again. Writing the damn book is only one part of this. I'm not done. The work is not done. Not nearly. I had to give myself a little pep talk because for the last couple of years, I was so laser focused on writing this story that I forgot about how much fun it is to query literary agents. I'm very goal oriented, so I set a goal to query at least 1 agent a day. I have a 9-to-5, I freelance on the side, freelance writing and editing, and I'm writing another book. 1 query a day is something I know I can hit. I will absolutely have days where I do more than 1, like weekends, or if my husband is traveling for work and I'm bored in the evenings with no one to hang out with, I will do more than 1 a day. Those days I might do 3 or 4 agents, but always focusing on agents that make sense for me. Yes, querying is largely a numbers game, but you should never sacrifice the quality of your queries or be less targeted with the agents you're approaching just for the sake of querying more. Never sacrifice quality for quantity. That's how I'm approaching this day to day. Now I want to share how I'm tracking all of this. What I like about the idea of solely using Query Tracker is that it tracks your queries. But as I said, I'm not only using Query Tracker. At the time of this recording, I've sent, I think, about 10 queries, and a few were by email. That's what the agents specified on their website. They wanted email. So what I've done is I've created a very simple spreadsheet. There are 6 columns: the name of the agent, the agency, that agent's Query Tracker link, a link to that agent's bio on their website or the general agent's page, whichever they have, the query method, whether that's Query Tracker or email or something else, and the status. So for the status, I'm putting queried and then the date that I sent the query letter. If and when I hear back, I'll put the new status: rejected, request for partial, offer, hopefully, and then the date. I'm giving myself space to modify this as needed. Like I might delete the column with the link to their website bio and just hyperlink the agency name. Save myself a column. I like to keep things as simple as possible and just remove all the white noise. But for now, this is working. What else? Well, something else I learned in the past is that if you send a ton of queries and no one expresses any interest at all, something could be wrong with your query. Now, this is really hard stuff and it's all so subjective, so maybe nothing is wrong with your query, but also something could be wrong. How you're able to isolate what's possibly wrong depends on exactly what you are submitting to an agent. So here's an example. If I query 50 agents and all 50 either ignore or reject me, and all of those agents only asked for a query letter, no synopsis, no sample chapters, nothing, then it's reasonable for me to go, maybe something is wrong with my query because that's the only thing I submitted. Many agents ask for sample chapters. They might see something in your sample chapters that they don't like. I don't know if it'll work out this way, but I'm going to keep my eyes open for any patterns. If I send maybe 20 query letters, only the letters, and I don't get any interest, I will consider revising my query letter and switching to a new version. This is another reason I'm kind of a fan of taking it slow and not sending as many queries as possible, as fast as possible. Depending on the responses and the feedback you get, you might gain really valuable insight into where specifically you're going wrong. Not always, but sometimes. And any edge we can get, any tiny thing we can do to tip the odds in our favor, why wouldn't we? So far, I've been throwing out arbitrary numbers. I just said if I send 20 or 30 queries and don't get any interest, blah, blah, blah. There are no hard and fast rules here. There's no rule that says send 20 queries and if it doesn't work, stop and revise. So how do you know then when to pause and reconsider your approach, especially considering that when querying literary agents, you're often ignored because they're so busy. And if you're not ignored, you're probably getting rejected. I don't mean to sound negative when I say that, that's just the reality. There are God knows how many authors and far fewer agents. This is how math works. This is just how I'm planning to approach this, me personally, as of right now. So this isn't my first rodeo. If I send 30 very targeted queries and let those sit, since hearing back can take a while, If it looks like I'm not getting any interest, I will probably start revising my query letter, since that's the first thing they see. There are different ways to write queries. Some people put their bio last, some people put it first, as an example. Personally, I have a pretty decent bio, so I have tried putting that first and then getting into the hook. There are all sorts of variables that you can kind of split test. Now that I think of it, something else I should note in my spreadsheet is which version of my query the agent got. Because what if I were to send 30 queries with the first version of my letter, get no interest, revise my query and send 30 more with version 2, and then I get 3 agents interested? It stands to reason that the second version of my query letter is stronger. Those are the types of patterns that it'll be hard to pick out if I'm not tracking my work. Querying literary agents is so tricky for a number of reasons. For starters, they don't typically take on many new clients each year. This industry is super saturated and very competitive. There are too many authors and not enough agents for all of us to have a happy ending. But also, the process is very slow. It could be months before an agent even sees your query and then responds. That makes it challenging to test things like I've already talked about in this video. The way I look at it is this. I spent about 2 years crafting this story. I'm not going to start rushing it now. I'm not going to drag my feet either, but there are some things you just can't force. You can't rush. Instead, I focus on efficiency and precision and being as intentional as possible. That means making peace with sometimes slowing down. In fact, I tried to rush one of my emails, one of the first ones I sent, and I copied and pasted the query and sample chapters into the email, and it all looked good. Everything was double spaced. Sent the email, went back to my sent folder to check the email. Everything was single spaced. One giant, more like giant block of text. I'm not hearing back from that agent. Anyway, slow down. There are other things we can do to help our querying efforts. In this video, I talked about writing conferences and my own experiences with them. I've mentioned before that I'd like to attend more of those this year and other events where I can meet people and network. You can meet and sit down with agents at some of these events and you can pitch them. I did that in the past, and while it obviously doesn't guarantee anything, you do form this new connection. You open the line of communication. And last time I met with 3 agents. And if I remember correctly, after pitching them at the event, which I didn't get an offer, unfortunately, that's okay, I pitched them a second time with my next manuscript. When I queried them that second time, I said, hey, we've met. We met whenever it was at this conference. I remember 2 of them responding for sure to the second pitch. The third I don't remember, but they gave me a chance. So in March, I'm going to a conference right here in Colorado, and I'm pitching 4 agents. I feel like so much of writing a book and then querying is just like kind of stumbling through the dark and kind of like, is anyone there? Can anyone help me? And then you just curl up in the corner, fetal, and cry. What I always try to go back to, try to remind myself of, is what I talked about in this video. When the rejections start coming in, and I ask myself, am I wasting my time? I then go, well, why do I keep writing books? And the answer is, because I love it. Because I know in my bones that I was born to write stories. I know it. And as much as the rejection eventually starts to hurt, and it does hurt, does that take away the pleasure that I experienced when I was writing it? No. It's tough, but that's what we have to keep in mind. Why do we write? Now, if you don't enjoy writing and you're doing it solely for the outcome, you're in trouble. But that's another video. I'd love to hear about your querying journey, the good, the bad, the ugly. If you're open to sharing it, just drop me a comment and say hello. And thank you as always for supporting me and supporting my channel and watching and engaging. I'm grateful you're here. I'm cheering you on. You're doing great. Keep going. I believe in you, and we need people like you. We need people to tell cool stories. All right, see you next time.